Hey guys, Florent from Off to Lens here. Today we're going to talk about the BMPCC4K. Normally we don't do this kind of videos, reviews, or I think that's probably the first time I'm actually in front of the camera, but I thought that this would be a good occasion to do it. I've been asked a lot of questions about this camera, so I thought we'd do a quick review. I've been using the camera for more than a week now, about an hour to 2 hours a day. So yeah, I've got a pretty good idea of the camera in itself, how it feels to shoot with it. So in this short review, I think we'll probably do a longer review at some point, maybe after like a month or so, when we have we've tried pretty much everything and shot like a proper project with it. But so far I have a pretty good idea, and I thought I'd give you like my impressions and what I like, what I don't like about this camera, what could be improved. I'm sure there's a lot of reviews out there that are going to be very technical or that are going to be hands-on, but I just wanted to give you my impression as a filmmaker that have been using Blackmagic products for a few years now, and also I've been using the Canon C200 this year as my work camera, and we've been using a lot of different cameras in the past few years, so we've got a pretty good idea of where this fits and if it's as good as it is on paper, and if that's the camera for you. It's definitely the camera for us when it comes to what we want to do with it, which is travel and stock footage and small personal projects when we don't want to like to use the C200. We're not vloggers, we're not reviewers, we are just filmmakers and photographers. Some of you may know us through Instagram maybe, but we mostly do outdoors. We also do brand content, like commercials and documentaries, a few online campaigns for different different brands, or we work with different agencies, mostly here in Australia, but also with America and England quite a bit as well. I pre-ordered the camera as soon as it was announced at NAB, so my local supplier here, Mac, one of the guys was there, and I sent him an email and said, whatever they're announcing tomorrow, make sure to place an order, because I knew that Blackmagic usually listens to their customer, so I knew that they would address most of the issues of the previous Pocket, and all I needed was 4K. The 60p and the fact that you could record on USB-C, the dual ISO, the low light performance, that was kind of a surprise, and a really well received surprise. So this one is not a pre-production model. It hasn't been sent to us. We bought it through regular channel through our supplier in Sydney. I think this is one of the first batch that was released by Blackmagic. We originally bought the Pocket camera in 2013, and that changed a lot of things for us. That was kind of like our first video-only camera. There's obviously a few quirks with the camera, and it was quite hard at times to shoot with it. The size was very small, the screen was a bit rubbish. There's a few quirks, but for the price, I was still a beast of the camera, and I think I've used it up to April this year on a trip to Hawaii, because I couldn't find anything else that would give me the same image quality for the form factor and the price. To start with, I'm sure you guys know already the specs, but I thought I'd give you like a quick rundown. So it shoots 4K, ProRes and RAW, 60p. You could do 120 in 1080 as well. Obviously it comes with the cinematic image quality that Blackmagic is known for. Then you also have the ability to record on SD and CFast, as well as SSDs through USB-C. You also get this massive screen at the back that you guys can see here, which is really nice. It runs on Canon batteries, and I think that's about it. So when I first got this, I mean, when it first announced, I was kind of like, okay, this looks like it would be a lot bigger and a lot heavier than the original one, not really a pocket anymore. So when I first unboxed it and I saw it, I was like, okay, this is actually quite big. Like, I think I had my 5D Mark III next to it, and it was quite similar in size. But when I picked this up, it actually felt quite light and comfortable. The screen was probably the first thing that really, you know, like kind of surprised me. I didn't expect to be that big compared to, let's say, a C200 that we have, where the screen is really hard to see. So this is really good. Nice display, really sharp. Also, so the body in itself, like I said, is quite light. I think it's made of polycarbonate, so really durable. Feels sturdy, really well made, and well balanced. I think that's the thing that really, you know, like that I noticed straight away is how well balanced the camera was. On the original Pocket, it was kind of too small, and you would sometimes feel the body of the camera like, you know, like it was hard to hold. So this is quite nice to be able to go outside and have this quality, this image and this codecs in a camera that's so small, so no one really looks at you when you're shooting. Like we were on a shoot in Europe for 3 weeks, sorry. So for 3 weeks, and we had a C200 rigged up a little bit, and we got told off like so many times in so many different locations. So this is a nice thing about these cameras, you know, like it's great to be able to shoot anywhere and not, you know, having people like looking at you, asking you questions all the time. Most of the videos that we shoot, we tend to shoot ProRes UHD 422. We've been using HQ and it's great, but ProRes 422 has been fine so far. So unless we shoot in really extreme environment, extremely bright or super dark with a lot of, you know, like contrast and difference in light, we might use HQ, but I think we'll stick to ProRes 422. I think the question that's been asked the most in the videos is what lens I use. So I've been only using this one, which is the 12-35 Panasonic 2.8. It's been a great lens. I've had it for, you know, like 3 or 4 years on the original Pocket, and that's the only lens I really need. The sensor being bigger on this one, being Micro Four Third, that gives me a 24-70 2.8 on a full frame equivalent, which is really nice. It's got IS, which is one of the main reasons I bought this originally. Whilst the camera doesn't have internal body stabilization, I'm okay with that. The kind of shooting that I do is quite maybe more still. I don't really move too much. I follow people around, you know, and shoot like that. Mostly shot of my girlfriend at the moment, but yeah, it's not really a big problem with me. Also the mics, a lot of people have been asking about the mic quality. So normally I would use in-camera mics purely just for scratch audio at most, but for what I've seen, I mean what I've heard so far, it's pretty good. It's not as good as some other cameras that say that have like stereo mics, like the C100 for example had pretty good onboard mics, but this is good. This is nothing like the original Pocket. It's quite, it's a bit warmer, a bit deeper, and so it's a really nice addition to have. So I'm pretty happy with it. The fans, I know some people have been asking about the fans. I haven't heard anything. It's pretty quiet. I don't think it will be an issue unless you're shooting in some really quiet environments. But for example, like I've been shooting when I did the ISO test, I was shooting in complete silence and I didn't hear anything at all. I know that I've seen on Wolf Crow his review, then the model that he had a crazy hissing sound at the start, and mine doesn't have it. I can turn it on now and you will see it's not making any sound. So yeah, that's something they must have fixed in the firmware. So the thing I like about this camera Obviously the image quality, but more importantly the codecs. So being able to shoot ProRes and RAW 4K is quite incredible in such a small form factor. Also being able to do 4K 60p is really nice. 120 in HD as well is always useful and a nice addition to this. We work on the Mac, so having ProRes file straight to CFast or SD is really useful, works really well. The screen, like I was saying, is really nice, really bright, really sharp. It's a really nice display. I haven't had any issues outside. Obviously it could always be brighter, but I found this to be really easy to shoot with, super clear, really nice. And also the things that I liked is the low light capabilities. I think Blackmagic cameras up to now are not really known for their low light performance. We've had the Ursa Mini Pro and the Pocket, so we know like how to work around it, but this is really nice, like to be able to have a Blackmagic camera finally that can shoot in low light is really good. I know there's been a lot of questions about the dual ISO and why 1250 looks cleaner than 3200. For me, I think I would shoot 400 if it's obviously sunny outside, and 32 as well. But like Blackmagic said in many of their releases, you should be able to shoot at any ISO and you should look fine. But I've found that 400, 1250 and up to 3200 was where you should probably shoot. I found that 3200 was quite clean. A lot of footage on the low light video that I shot in Bondi Beach was at 3200. Same in the Sydney video as well. All the inside shots at 3200, so that worked really well. And the 1250 is when the dynamic range resets itself, kind of thing. So that's why I think it becomes really, really clean straight away as opposed to 1000. So I would avoid 1000 if possible. The camera also comes with DaVinci Resolve 15, which is in itself like $300, I think, by itself. So that's a really nice addition. And I think even if you don't think you're going to use it, it's always good to have. You can just import your RAW footage or your ProRes footage, apply a lot, and export. You've got a bunch of like export settings. The color grading tools are very powerful. For example, you can put 4K 60p and it will run smoothly if you have like kind of a decent computer. If you're not going to use it, I'm sure you can always sell it, but the fact that this is included in in Australia it's about $1,900, so in America $1,300 I think. It's pretty crazy to be able to get a camera like this and the software that comes with it. It's really, really cool. Another thing that I really liked about this camera is the touchscreen. So it's really, really responsive. The menu system is great. I think it's probably the best menus I've used. Canon, for example, is not too bad. Sony confuses me a lot. Another thing that I've liked are the layout, the button layout. I think it's enough buttons that you can access to the main, features of the camera pretty quickly, but not too many that you get confused when you look at it. I like the function buttons. I don't think I've changed them, so at the moment I've got zebra on the first one, I've got the frame guides on one, and I've got a LUT on the other one, just to kind of see, because I shoot log most of the time. It's nice sometimes to see what it will look like once graded. Another great thing about this camera is to be able to record on both CFast, SD and SSDs. So we have those small Samsung SSDs here, the T5. We have a few of them, the 1 tera and the 500 gig, and it's really good that you can record just on that, because, for example, you can buy one of the 1 tera for, I don't know, $250, $300, and that will give you like a lot more than you could get on the CFast or an SD for the price. So that's a really nice feature. I've only shot a couple of clips with it in RAW just to see how it would work, and it's just very easy. You just plug it in and it acts like a normal media card, and it will just show up as Samsung T5 and you're good to go. So that's really good if you're traveling, for example, if you're shooting like corporate videos and you need to run interviews and you don't want to burn through your CFast because it can be quite expensive, or USD, then you can just shoot on that, and that's pretty good. You can also charge the camera via USB-C. I've done it and it took about 4 to 5 hours to charge the battery that was inside. So I think it's a good backup to have, but I would still use a LP6 charger, much faster and also quite inexpensive. So it's good to have both. I think you can also power the camera on the wall, then you can shoot, unlimited. So now onto the things that I don't really like about this camera so far. So the first is battery life, maybe. You get about 45 minutes on a single battery. I'm using genuine Canon batteries. And yeah, so between 45 and 50 minutes. I would have liked it to be more like an hour, maybe it would have been good. But then again, I think it's because I'm used to C200 batteries or the Ursa Mini Pro Vlog batteries, which you usually get about 3 hours to 4 hours. So this is still really good for the size, like to compare, for example, to the original Pocket when you would get only like 20 or 25 minutes maybe, or the A7S or all the smaller cameras. I think you would find this to be quite similar, maybe better. So yeah, it's not really a deal breaker. I own about 7 or 8 Canon batteries, so that probably would get me through a couple of days. The other thing so far, when I was shooting CFast, sometimes when I would turn the camera on, the screen would flicker and the settings would change by themselves, which looked kind of weird. I tried to record it. I only did a small recording on my phone so you guys could see. So it looks more like a glitch, and you turn the camera off and it's fine again. So I'm not sure what's the deal here. I'm sure Blackmagic will address this in future firmwares. But yeah, that's not really a deal breaker. It's just, it didn't stop me shooting or anything like that. The camera did freeze on me one time, so I was touching the screen and nothing was happening. You could still change the settings, but you couldn't touch the screen. Another thing, when I was shooting on SD, the first time I've used it, I was shooting 4K UHD ProRes 422, and I was getting drop frames at 60p and sometimes at 2398 as well. So I don't know why, because it should technically be okay. I'm using SanDisk 300 megasecond, which are quite fast. I think it's probably some of the fastest you could get. And I've never had any problem on the Ursa Mini Pro shooting at the exact same resolution. So I'm not sure, maybe that's something that will be fixed in the future. But I've decided to use only my CFast, and I have had no issues so far. So I've been shooting with the Lexa CFast 2.0, which are 525 meg per second, which is why it's running smoothly. I've been able to shoot 4K RAW lossless, 4K DCI with this camera, using the Lexa CFast, but it would stop recording after maybe 10 seconds. So I think it's the debit is kind of huge. You get about 2000 megabits a second, which is quite insane. Like in comparison, our C200 RAW light shoots at 1 gigabits per second, so half of that. Another thing, the playback. So when you play back, when you want to play back your footage, you have to be on the same resolution, the exact same settings that you've been shooting at. So for example, if you were doing some 1080 120 and you wanted to look back at the footage that you've captured in 4K the day before or the same day, you have to change the settings to be able to look back at that footage, which is fine. I think a lot of cameras are like that, but I can't remember if the Ursa was like this. But yeah, that's one thing that sometimes is a bit annoying, but I understand why it's like this. But yeah, it's not, again, it's not going to stop me shooting or anything like that. You just have to remember that the files that you've recorded might be on different resolution, and that's why you might not be able to view them straight away. I know that this camera takes stills as well. I've only done it a couple of times. I wouldn't recommend it as a still camera. I think it's great to use as a reference frame for where you shoot. So if you want to shoot and you just want to, you know, like quickly grab a frame so you remember like the setting, the lights, the framing that you were filming at, that might be quite useful, but I wouldn't rely on it for actual stills. We are DSLR shooters, so we use to full frame images. So for us, this is purely a video camera, and we wouldn't use it for stills. It's a nice feature to have if you get stuck somewhere and you absolutely need to take a still, but I think I'll probably be just pulling frames out of the 4K footage and should be fine. So I've posted a video a couple of days ago that was shot entirely in 1080 120. Whilst the footage is not the sharpest, obviously, with the crop factor being almost 4 and being 1080, I still like the footage. I still think that it is really useful in some situations. We don't normally shoot 120 just because it doesn't really fit our workflow, and we might now. We have it on the C200 and we used to have it on the EOS Mini Pro. But for us, 60p, for me 60p, it's still plenty enough. So unless I have a specific idea or subject that I need to shoot in 120, I don't think I'd be using it that much. If you guys are after a camera that shoots 120 fps, and if you guys care more about this than the 60p, then this might not be the right camera. I'm sure there's a lot of cameras out there that will shoot 120 without such a big crop and also without the soft image. Who is this camera for? I think if you're into short films, cinematic travel videos, stock footage, or you know, like anything where you want the absolutely best image quality and you don't mind having to bring a few extra batteries, buying quite a lot of media cards, I think that would be the perfect camera for you if you're on a tight budget. If you're doing events or weddings or something that requires, you know, like fast-paced and run and gun, and when you need to, you know, like shoot for long periods of time, that might not be the greatest camera for you. So for us, for example, we'll be using this purely for travel and stock footage. Not so much for work. We will use our C200 for this because it's just different kind of camera, and for the work that we do, like documentary or commercial, you really need a bigger camera in terms of the connectivities, the batteries. We might use this as a big cam sometimes, like I was saying. If you're shooting in locations where you can't really bring a big camera or a big rig, this is pretty much like perfect because you get amazing image quality, but it's so small that no one will look at you. So you can, you know, squeeze in like some locations, and you can, I don't know, get on a bus, on a tube, get, you know, like into a shopping center, that kind of things. So this would be really good for that. Yeah, so it's been really great shooting with this little guy for the past 10 days. I'm really keen to shoot more and maybe do a proper project, either like a small documentary or maybe a longer form video. I've been kind of shooting here or there, doing some tests that you guys probably have seen in the past few. The response on our videos has been really great so far, so thank you so much. We've had a lot of comments, a lot of views, you know, and it's been really good. So I'm sure a lot of you are still waiting for theirs patiently. So if you have any questions, let me know. I'll try to answer them in the next video. I'm going to be shooting a lot more in the next few weeks. So I think it's about it for today. Feel free to subscribe. Like I said, that's not usually what we do, but we intend to do a lot more of those videos, reviews and tests, and obviously with the BMPCC4K as well. And we're going to be shooting a lot more in the next few days, few weeks and few months. We have a few travel trips planned as well, so we'll definitely be taking this with us. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.